This is a show that brings to the forefront newsmakers, entertainers, and those making a difference in our lives and in our world. Each week is a new adventure with topics ranging from the most serious and cutting edge to the most lighthearted and entertaining.
This is Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon.
Turn your lamp down low. Yeah, wake up, mama, baby. Turn your lamp down low. I got some nerve, so I can jump from your dough.
Greetings, everyone. Richard Solomon from My Father's Place Radio. That is the music of Kerry Kearney, and he's in studio with us today. So just get a little bit more of a taste of this incredible music.
Grandma seems to have them, Grandpa seems to have them too. Grandma seems to have them, Grandpa seems to have them too. Yeah. Wake up, yeah. Wake up, yeah. Wake up now, baby. Turn your lamp down low. Well, I got some nerve. Turn the jump from your door. Yeah, you got some nerve. Turn the jump, baby.
That was awesome. Tell us, first of all, Kerry Kearney, master blues musician. Mm-hmm. That was from what album?
From the Smokehouse Serenade, the new one. Actually, it's been out about a year or so, a little more. And we did really good on radio. We made #1, actually, on Blues Radio last April. So, and that was Statesboro Blues. That's an old Blind Willie McTell song that the Allman Brothers made very famous. But I kind of kept to my own little version of it, so that was it.
Now, I have to say, first of all, thank you, because you did something really incredible last year, well, earlier this year, which was you performed at My Father's Place for the United States Navy's USS Tornado crew. They were stationed over as part of Fleet Week at Kings Point, and we had part of the crew come over. I guess some people had to stay and guard the ship. And you put on a rockin' performance. And it was just the crew was so appreciative. I think, and then we had a lot of people who are either alumni from Kings Point. We had some veterans in the audience. It was really, really cool how many people we had there, and just the raw enthusiasm. Thank you for doing that. It was just a wonderful.
Oh yeah, our pleasure. It was great. You know, and anything for the boys.
Yeah,
boys and girls.
That's true. That's true.
Right, got to do that.
You know, and we had some great interviews with the whole crew. And one of the cool things that we did is we had a veteran who's about 90 years old who is in a ship during the 48 to 51 time frame, not too dissimilar to the kind of ship that they were on today. And they're all comparing notes.
Oh, wow.
About ship life then and now. And it's pretty much, it's evolved, but you can see that, a lot of it's the same. So you played a lot of that music at my father's place.
Yes.
It was just a great performance. So tell us a little bit about the album and what you're working on kind of now. Because I understand there's some like a little project coming up.
There was for Christmas time. Yeah,
right. All right. So let's talk about that album because you kind of just kind of finessed how well received it was, and this show is all about shameless promotion. So let's hear a little bit about some of the songs, some of the influences. You said that the song that we played, which was track number 3, was an Allman Brothers song, State Brothers Blues, with your own. What else is on there?
What it is? It was written by Blind Willie McTell. Blind Willie McTell put out some stuff in the late 20s, right? When he was rediscovered, there was a rediscovery back in the early 60s, okay? And one guy's name was Harry Smith. He put out an album in Greenwich Village. They did this thing. They compiled all these really great tunes from like way back when. And when it came out, that's what started the whole new blues boom and folk boom and all that stuff around that time. That turned in the 60s. So in the whole Bleecker Street sound. So what happened was when that came out, he had passed away a couple of years prior in 58, Blind Willie McTell. So he never saw the resurgence and the recamping of everything that was going on from the 20s, which a lot of guys did, like Mississippi John Hurt. There's a lot of these old great players that kind of came into the folk fest of Newport, who came out like that. But when they find him, they found that he was already dead. So there was a couple of tunes they had from him that was really great, and one was Statesboro Blues. And Taj Mahal did it actually in 68, a couple of years prior to the Allman Brothers. He did that tune. It sounds pretty much like it, the same type of riffs and all like that. The Allman Brothers took it, they went through the roof pretty much what they did. So what I try to do is if I take a song like that, a classic tune, I try to make it our own feel. And that song has like a little bit of Louisiana feel, which I love the Louisiana sound.
New Orleans. I was ready to pull out a little gumbo from under the table.
Heat it up, I'm ready. But a little of that. So what I try to do with each tune, I find that a lot of blues can be kind of the same thing. I'm not saying it's boring, because I love all blues music, but it could be a little monotonous after a while. If you have like 20, some people have like 20 tunes on an album. It's amazing. And, I'm shouldn't say albums, we'll see these. And it could be all like the same type of thing, the same kind of shuffle, or the same kind of like slow blues. Each one of our songs, I try to do a little bit of the gamut of everything, whether it's New Orleans, whether it's Texas, whether it's, the Delta, whether it's Chicago, type thing like that. So each one is its own little thing. So it keeps you kind of, not too boring. You can go around the house and clean your house with it. It's great. Usually as a coaster if you want. But it's one thing you just put on, let it rip. And that's what I try to do like that. So it makes it more interesting. It makes it interesting for me too, because I get to play all those kind of styles, which is great. And it gives everybody, like our piano player, David Bennett Cohen, he's a really great, what would you say, like barrel house type piano player. It gives him, time to like stretch out, which is great. And he was with Country Joe and the Fish for years. Back then, he was one of the original guy. Yeah.
While we're on the subject, because we're never scripted here. Tell me about your current band and who's in it and who's played. Because when you played at my father's place, you had this really great musicians on stage with you, and I thought they were just all stellar.
With a show like that, I'm able to get all the players I'm looking for pretty much. In my father's place, of course, it was great. The Great South Bay, I do that too at the same time. I try to make it into a show where people are kind of hanging out. They come to see like a whole thing. My usual suspect. My usual suspect will be only the three of us. I do like a trio. Okay, I also have a really great conga player, Nydia Miata, which is really fantastic, and it turns into this little bit of like a Cuban, Afro-Cuban blues thing, which is really great at the same time. I have her playing that too. So I mean, that's pretty much the four of us. It's like it's Nydia on conga, Mario Stiano, really great drummer, and Jerry Sorrentino on bass. And those two guys were with Savoy Brown for years. They were their backup band. And so I have a really unbelievable, to me, I always say to myself, well, he sounds so good. I'm like, well, I got a great backup band. I mean, to me, it's like, without a band like that, it's it's funny, you could be like not a virtuoso guitar player. If you have a great backup band, it doesn't make a difference what you're doing, because it's just great. You know what I mean? And if you are a virtuoso and the band behind you is not that really kicking, you can really feel it. It's not, but that's the real meat and potatoes of everything. It's a great drummer and a great bass player. And those guys are great.
So who do you like to go, like if you could just put on a pair of sunglasses and go in stealth mode and go out there, who would you like to actually see as an audience member and as a fan right now who's out there?
There's a lot of people. it's funny. The other night I played with John Hammond.
Oh wow.
And I would be an audience member, like, watching that. But I actually got a chance to play with him actually on the same stage, which is great. Him and Guy Davis. Thank you. I can't remember his name. But Guy Davis actually is the son of Ruby Dee and Ozzie Davis, the actors. And he's a really, really great Robert Johnson type guy. And what we did was we did a Robert Johnson show. And it was myself, a guy named Rob Europe. He's an up-and-coming guy from the island. Guy Davis and John Hammond. And I thought it was fantastic. It was great. It was out at the Suffolk Theater. It was amazing. But it was a Robert Johnson night. And it was fun. I like that kind of stuff. I like watching Delta like that. Delta Blues is really, really a lot of fun. And I'm going to go pretty soon. I'm going to go to actually I got to talk to Epi about doing this sometime. I'm going to a Django Reinhardt show, and it's Django was a player from way back actually in France. He was a gypsy who only used 2 fingers because he got it burnt off. The rest of his hand was burnt in a fire.
Oh wow.
Django. So he only plays with 2 fingers, and he plays better with guys with all the fingers. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, but he passed away in '53, and it's gypsy jazz, and I like doing that. I like watching that stuff. That's amazing. You know what I mean? I like because a lot of ways too. I don't mind. So I have a really, really bad allergy, and it's killing me. I think I'm doing some kind of drug or something like that. It's killing me.
Have a little water.
Yeah, that's yeah. But anyway, but watching that's great. And I love, and it's not something that I do. It takes a lifetime to learn that kind of music, and to me, it's like watching something I just don't really. I understand it, but I can't really do it. So to me, that's great watching that like that. If I'm saying, wow, that's really cool. So
now, do you have like an amazing record collection? In all the formats.
I did it one time. It's funny. It's funny you say that because for a while, in my actually CD player, I had the greatest hits of Desi Arnaz.
Wow.
And it was all
because he was
stuff.
actually really good. People don't realize that he was really, really good at what he did.
And the recordings were pre I Love Lucy. And what they did was, I think it was CBS or somebody gave him the opportunity to go out in the late '40s to go around the country as this team. So it was Lucy and Desi, and they were doing stuff, and she did all the little. And in the show, you see their little skits. Is a lot of singing stuff is from that show they did, and that's what started the whole thing to get out there and do it. So they wanted to see what the reaction of the public was, and that's what it was. And I had that on because it was like something. Radio was like kind of down on me a little bit with stuff. I wasn't really into it too much. Trying to find something on the radio, even late at night, I can't find stuff. Even on like a public radio, I can't find anything sometimes. Although now it's different, but it's getting back into that little realm. But for a while there, it was not that good. So I listened to that. I have that in my thing. Django Reinhardt, like I was saying about Django. Some really obscure blues stuff. And maybe some classical stuff, but things that I don't really normally do. I like doing that like that.
So where do you go record shopping now? Now that the classic, okay, because the classic places that all of us used to go to, right. When we would travel and go to like New Orleans or Chicago, whatever you go. I remember going to the Caribbean, and I literally walked into a store and I said, "Who are the best local artists?" And they thought we were like feds or something, because and I said, no, I collect music, just who's really good. So when they realized that we were really just music fans, but I went to Spain and I was like who's the Madonna of Spain, and I would just collect music, but you can't really get that. There's really no J&R Music World. There's no Tower Records. There's no Sam the Record Man like there was in Toronto. Right. And then, of course, our friends at WLIR used to get everything from overseas and shipped, to the States way before they hit our shores. But where aside from eBay, where else where did you go now? Where did you go when those outlets were available?
Well, I used to go, Sam Goody, of course, back then. There was a place called Titus Oaks. It was on Avenue U. And Ocean Avenue in Brooklyn. And they had a really, really big selection out there. It was unbelievable. It was kind of like Bleecker Bob's type thing, but cheaper, like that. So I'm saying about eBay now is amazing, because I'll go on, I'll find an obscure album or CD from way back when, even vinyl, and it's like $5 and free shipping. I mean, you can't beat it. It's great. And I'm one of those people, I have a flip phone. If I had a rotary dial on it, I'd love it even better, you know what I mean? So I'm still a CD guy. I'll pop them in. I have a 5-change or whatever, and I'll just put them in and just let it go. And a lot of them, they're remastered. They really sound great. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable. It was Stones, the first 16 albums, and it was with Brian Jones up to like 68. It's a little box set, right? I saw it on there for like $100, $200. I got it for $15 from China on eBay with no shipping. It was unbelievable. It's fantastic. It's great. And that stuff like that, you'd always find stuff. It's amazing. And like I said, I'll just keep doing CDs as long as I can. I like it.
Now between cassettes, 8-tracks, 78s, 33 vinyls, and what's your favorite format? Because I've talked to a lot of different artists, and some people actually said that they just really miss vinyl because it was warmer. It had, aside from the fact that it was tactile,
right,
and you saw, pictures and lyrics, and you were able to touch it, and so there was something romantic about the hisses and the pops in it. Where do you like to listen to?
And if it was an album that opened up, you'd always find seeds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From somebody. But anyway,
it's a family show.
And it's almost legal. But it's funny. I used to. I do love vinyl. About vinyl, what's great about it is that it's vibrational. So when you hear the drums and the bass, it's the warmth of it too, the analog warmth. That's amazing. And when I record digitally, we record Smokehouse, the last album digitally, of course. I've done it for a bunch of years, and they have some stuff in. They have some apps in the studio that actually makes it analog again. So what you're doing is, even though you're doing digital, you're screwing it up into the analog, which you're trying to get away from in the first place. But you want that sound though, because there's little rounded areas, and when you're finger picking guitar, or whatever, or doing something that sounds a little too stale, a little too something going on, a little metally, something like that. So what it'll do, it'll round those off, so you get that tape sound. In other words, I love that like that, and that's where the analog comes in. I mean, tape. I used to have a reel-to-reel when I was younger.
I remember reel-to-reel,
and that sounded great too. Fantastic. Yeah.
Now, do you remember 8-track tapes when in the middle of the song it would go?
Oh yeah, to the next one.
Click.
Yeah. That's what it was, yeah. I remember having a 45 of American Pie. You have to. It was so long, you had to turn it over. In the middle of the song, it would go. They would fade it. Then you turn the thing over, and it was the other side like that. Yeah.
I'll never forget when my cousin told me, one of the earlier 45s that I ever purchased was Light My Fire by the Doors. And then my cousin told me, she said, on the album, there's a longer version.
That's yeah. I have something about the Doors. It's funny you said that. When I was about 6 or 7, I think I was probably 6. It was 67, so I was born a little bit later in 67. I mean, I was born in 1960 in August. So this was probably around Christmas time, I guess, in 67. My brother bought the album home. I remember laying in bed and hearing Light My Fire 3,000 times. And I couldn't stand the Doors after that.
Wow.
I mean, I like the Doors. I did, eventually get into them. But it's I remember hearing it, I was like, that's about the sound of the organ just killed me. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you what, about 20 years ago, I was walking through the Village, right? The Bottom Line was still open, Great Bottom Line. And a guy walked up to me and he says, listen, I have 2 tickets for Ray Manzarek tonight, if you want to come and see him. It's for the second show. So I wasn't doing nothing. A friend of mine was with me, so I said, sounds great, so we'll go in. So we played the Bottom Line back then, actually. So I knew, I knew all the guys, like Stanley and everybody. And so I walked in, and I'm like, oh, Kerry, what's going on? So I said, listen, I have 2 tickets from this guy. Come on, I'd sit over here. So he sat us down, and Ray Manzarek came out by himself, and he didn't sing. He started playing the tunes. He'd say a little thing. Well, me and Jim, we were on the beach, and this came out of the song. And so he started playing the tune, and the whole audience sang. It was the most unbelievable, and that right there made me have my respect more for the Doors again. But he was doing this stuff, and it was such a great, great show. I remember singing with everybody. It was really, really, really amazing. It was really great.
Wow. All right, this is Richard Solomon with Kerry Kearney. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Roger.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Vic.
And we're Blue Race. And you're listening to Richard Solomon on WCWP
88.1 FM.
Yeah, I'm shaking like a jelly. I'm your peanut butter boy. Yeah, she's shaking like a jelly. I'm your peanut butter boy.
This is Richard Solomon. We're with Kerry Kearney in the studio. And just keep it locked in. This is a great song from his album. This is track number 1.
Like a jelly, I'm your peanut butter boy. Yeah, she's shaking like a jelly. I'm your peanut butter boy. a jelly. Yeah, I'm shaking like a jelly. Yeah, I'm shaking like a jelly. Oh, shaking like some jelly. Yeah, I'm shaking like some jelly, mama. I'm your peanut butter boy.
All right, Richard Solomon, Kerry Kearney in the studio, and that was a great song. Oh, so what were we listening to?
That was Shaking Like Jelly.
Okay, and who is that? A cover or is that?
No, that's one of us.
Oh, that's a great.
Yeah, the album is it's pretty much like 90% our own music. A couple songs just to have a little classic.
That had a great old blues feel to it.
It was a Chicago type of thing like that. It was a shuffle like that they call it. Yeah.
All right. So before the break, we were talking. You give me this great story about the Doors. Who were your influences? Like, okay, let me ask you this. Do you remember the first 45, 33 that you remember buying with your own money, not a present, that you actually affirmatively went out and bought?
It was Hey Jude.
Ah, the
45.
Beatles. Okay.
I remember the day I did it. I think it was like A&S's or something like that. I remember my mother. We were there.
I used to go to Corvettes.
Bambergers. Yeah, birds out of the best. But yeah, I remember going there. I remember getting the 45. I remember seeing it on TV. It was on.
Sullivan? Was it Sullivan?
I think it was, or David Frost had it on.
Okay.
And they did it. It's supposed to be live, and the whole audience got up. Like all of a sudden, they were around them. They're all over the Beatles at the end doing that that part. It's pretty cool. But I remember hearing the song and being like really digging it. I remember seeing the Beatles on. I was about 3 when the Beatles actually came out. I was born in '60, so. But I do remember. It's funny too. I tell a story a lot about this. Is that being 3 years old, I have nothing to gauge anything on. I don't know what was before that. So there was Elvis, of course, and there was like Frank Sinatra, and go way back to whatever Rudy Valley, for God's sakes, way back in the 20s. But it's like I had nothing to gauge the Beatles on, but I knew something was very, very special, and that's how powerful they are. Because I had nothing to say, to really gauge it against, like I was saying, you know what I mean? So in that sense, and that was my first, like, really, things that really blew me away was the Beatles, in a lot of ways, as a kid.
Now, the Beatles were influenced very much by the blues, but where did your love
for the blues come from?
For the blues come from?
My brother had a really, really great collection. I'm the youngest of 3 other brothers, 4 guys in the family. My oldest brother, he was born in 1950, one was born in 53, one was born in 55. So in the 60s, I had the greatest, album collection, whatever you want to say, but it wasn't even mine. It was theirs. And my dad was a tinkerer, so we had this Heath kit, it was called, and he made this big speaker. It was a mono speaker, an Macintosh receiver we had, Macintosh with the tubes and stuff, and we had a turntable. And he was always like, influencing us on, get records, whatever. He was into like jazz and classical music. But my brothers were out, as soon as something came out brand new, they were had it like that, you know what I mean? So we had like hundreds of albums of everything you could think of. And a lot of it was blues, it was surf music, it was folk music my brother liked, doo-wop music, everything, every brothers, everything like that. It was amazing. And I remember one time I was into Cream a lot. I'm listening to Cream, and my brother came in one day. I was listening to the Layla album, actually. And he came in, he said, hold on a second, let me do this for you. So he took the album off and put B.B. King Live at the Regal on. It's a live album from '64. And he put it on, I was like, wow, it sounds like Eric. And he goes, no. Eric sounds like him. So what I did was from that day, I went back and listened to what Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page, what their influences were, and the Allman Brothers. What did they listen to? So I found out. So instead of me getting the education from them, I got the education of what they listened to. So I got straight across. And I found myself being a better player because of it. I understood like where it was. A lot of guys want to play fast, they want to play this or that, but there's a mood there. And that mood is from like, Robert Johnson and Mississippi John Hurt, like I was saying, and Elmore James and all these guys, B.B. King, of course. You know what I mean? B.B. King, I could tell, if you say like, I can name that tune in one note, I could hear that one note and I could tell it's B.B. King. That's how individual that man is. Amazing how he was. And I got to play with him 3 times in our career.
Okay, please elaborate.
I got a phone call from, it was right after the hurricane actually came, Sandy, and I was like pretty much devastated where I was. And then Breezy Point. I got a phone call, we have an opener at the Westbury Music Fair with B.B. King. Would you like to play it? Like, why do you even ask me if I want to play it for him? I was like stunned. I was dumbfounded. I was like, oh my God. And so we went there. And it was amazing because he was sick at the time. He was in a wheelchair. He was still okay. He still played a bit.
He was hanging in.
He was hanging in, definitely. And so I was backstage. We did a little sound check. Unbelievable. It was in the round. There was like 3,000 people, sold out, the whole thing. And so we're back. We're having dinner and stuff. And I see a couple of guys walk off his bus. His almost like his mafia guys, his men. You know what I mean? These proud African American guys in these beautiful suits, taking care of the king. You know what I mean? So you walk off the bus. They're walking, and Wolf walks on a little stand and the guitar. He's got it like a holy sepulcher, like walking down the aisle of like a church, like the Pope. And he's walking down with it. And I'm looking at him like, oh my God, that's it. And so he walked by me. I didn't get a chance to say hello to him. I felt a little bit, I didn't want to get in his way, you know what I mean? So he walked by and there was the king, there was him. So we did our set. Like I said, it was, by the second song, it was completely full. And we did a really, really unbelievable set. It was great. It was fantastic. We sold so many CDs that night. People saying, who are these guys? Blah, blah, blah. No, a lot of our friends came down and stuff too. And then when he played, he gave us kudos. He said, how about Kerry Kearney? What do you think about him? Blah, 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 all that stuff. So it was great. So after the show, I said to myself, I really feel, I have a lot of respect for him and blah, blah, blah. I've always had it. I'm glad I didn't say hello to him. He was a little sick. So the next day I'm going to Facebook and my drummer has a picture of him sitting in his lap. You know what I mean? He's like, he said, I knew the band. I'm like, I couldn't even say hello to the guy. Here you are, hanging out with BB. It was great though. But it was amazing. We did the Great South Bay with him. I also did the Paramount with him, which is fantastic. That was really, really great too. You know what I mean? But the Great South Bay, that's when he was really, it was probably a few months before he passed, and that was it. You know what I mean? He was really, it was awful that night, actually. That's how bad it was. But it's funny. It's like Bob Dylan. I saw Bob Dylan twice in my life. And I the first time I saw him, this is going 30-something years ago, I left. I mean, listen, I love Bob Dylan. I think he's great. But something about it, it just didn't really get to me. It was freezing at Jones Beach. Santana opened. I mean, everybody's like, jumping around like a bunch of, screwballs. But all of a sudden, Bob Dylan came out, and it was like, he did a 10-minute, solo song. I was like, oh, God. And it was freezing. So, anyway, but you're seeing like an icon. You're seeing something. That's what you're paying tickets for. And to this day, he's still doing it.
Yeah.
But just 35 years ago, I left. I can't imagine today.
The Endless Tour. I think it's called the Never-Ending Tour.
It's unbelievable.
So who else have you seen? Did you ever see Stevie Ray Vaughan or Muddy Waters?
I never saw them. I saw... Let me think too. It was really, really great. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you two people I saw that you probably never even heard of that blew me away. I mean, I saw Clapton about 90 times. I've seen all, I went to his Crossroads festivals. I saw everybody was playing on that thing. But there was a guy, it was back in around 78, 79. There was a place called Rockaway's. Kind of like my father's place in Rockaway Beach, right? So
my office is in Lawrence, so I know the area well.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's a Dunkin' Donuts now, actually. This building that was then. So anyway, a friend of mine and I, we had nothing to do one night. It's like on a Wednesday night, we were in school, we were hanging out. So school night, we said, listen, Robert Gordon's playing things, but it's like rockabilly stuff, right? And I know Robert Gordon's playing at my father's place. So.
Yes, and he has played already.
Yes. Yeah. So I went down, and maybe 25 people showed up. It was like in the middle of the week. It was probably raining. So I'm standing there watching the stage. I'm like really close. And in about the second or third song, the guitar player was, my jaw was hitting the ground. I couldn't believe what I was watching. You know what I mean? Because I never saw anything like it before in my life. And he played exactly the way I wanted to play, watching this guy play. And I was a young teenager. And the guy next to me looked at me, he came over to me, I didn't know who the guy was. And he goes, is this guy like the best guitar player you've ever seen? Like, what are we watching? I was like, yeah, this is unbelievable. And his name was Danny Gatton, his name was. And Danny Gatton did play at my father's place and stuff. And it was amazing. And the sad thing about him is that he had taken his life, a long time, about 30 years ago. And it was an eye-opener. I swear to God, I went home, I plugged my guitar in, I didn't get out of the room for a week. I was so influenced by it. I was so blown away by it.
What was it about his style that really brought something out?
You know what it was? It was like watching Scotty Moore from Elvis Presley or one of those guys, on some kind of really heavy duty acid or something. Like something that you would just I mean, inspired by it. I shouldn't say drugs inspire you, but it was like this.
Deep.
He took it to another realm, and he played old instruments. He played an old Telecaster. People that understand guitars out there. He played an old amp. And he everything, his tone, the way he played, everything. It was just really amazing to watch it close up, and nobody knew about it. And then about a month later, on the cover of Guitar Player magazine, to me that was like a Bible. I'd read that, I'd go out and I'd buy records of people I'd read about, you know what I mean? On the front page was the the Phantom of the Opera mask of the sky behind it said the world's most unknown guitar player, and it was him. It was Danny Gatton, yeah. Fantastic. He played, place in the city? Lone Star Cafe, he played a lot. All his plays, he played all the time. But he was one of those guys that people kind of knew. A lot of musicians, he was a musician, he was like the...
he was a guitarist?
He was a big time, yeah. He was like that, yeah. And a lot of guys like Hot Two and like all those guys, he was in that kind of realm of what was going on in that kind of like phase of what's happening. But and the funny thing is, what his day job was, he fixed old cars. He like souped them up or something like that in Maryland. That's where he lived, you know. And it was one of those things. It was so sad when the funny thing is, I told friends of mine, I couldn't stop talking about him for months and months and months. And he played there again. I said, we gotta go see him. We gotta go. I must have brought 100 people with me, and he had a different guitar player with him that night. He didn't have Danny Gatton, and I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. But that was it. And there was one other person I saw one time.
Yeah. So who's the second person?
The second guy was a folk guitar player, and I had an album by him. His name was Tom Paley. He was with the New City Ramblers, I think they were called. They were like this folk from like the late 50s in that whole Dylan thing, that whole resurgence, right? And I used to live in California, and I was doing laundry at a laundromat, and I saw this little flyer at the Lagunitas school, like day school, he's going to play. And he must have been in this little room he's going to play in. And so I told my friend I was at the time, I said, we got to go see him. It was like during the week again, we went out there. And he came out and he's kind of sitting around, he's drinking a cup of coffee, waiting people to come in. Maybe 25 people showed up for a little $5 to get in, whatever. And he sat there like this far away. And he just played, and it wasn't like he was doing like virtuosity. It was just so great. It was just so, I can't really explain it, how good it was. Something hits you, you see it and you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. But it wasn't like he was just playing and singing. And I didn't play I played my guitar for a week. Just watching that, just strumming guitar, and it was unbelievable, you know?
So who else had that kind of impact on you where you had sort of a pivot,
right.
where all of a sudden it's like, you know, in many ways you had like a master class in front of you, and then you decided to do a little self-study.
Right.
What other moments in your life were like that, where there was something that you saw and you pivoted? So obviously we had the Beatles was like an aha moment.
Right.
And then these two great guitar moments.
Like unknowns in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That's what you get. Well, definitely Eric Clapton, definitely Cream. My brother was big into that stuff. Like I said, we had the greatest, collection around. And me as a little kid, it was like, when they used to go out of the house, I'd be like sneaking things in there, listening to the Grateful Dead and everything else that he had. So I put on, I put on Cream, and on Wheels of Fire, obviously the, Crossroads. And what's funny is that song's about 3 minutes long because it's made for radio. And you can hear there was little edits in it at the end. All of a sudden he's playing, and all of a sudden it shuts till he starts singing again, and the whole thing like changes right there on the recording. Supposedly there's 11 stanzas of guitar solos on some cutting room floor of that song.
We gotta make some calls.
Let me tell you something. From this day, it has to be. It's like finding the Holy Grail or something like that somewhere. It's finding, King Solomon's Mines. It's like it's there, but it's almost like it's folklore. You know what I mean?
I remember when I was going to the State University of New York at Binghamton, and one of the whole...
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Who's famous from Binghamton? The famous band from Binghamton.
Well, the Grateful Dead played in 1970.
No, but who was the famous guy who came out of there? Who was born there?
Let's see. Paul Reiser. He ended up doing Mad About You. He was kind of famous. I mean,
Rod Serling.
Well, no, he didn't go to Binghamton University, but he came from Binghamton.
Yes.
He came from Binghamton. Yeah. In fact, I think
the Corningware, I think, is from that too.
I think Rod Serling High School is in Binghamton because I think they named the high school after him.
Because when I hear about that, I think about that, and that's him. Yeah.
So one of the guys in my corridor had Derek and the Dominoes in concert, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
Live album, yeah.
I'm like, it was one of those things you just couldn't find anywhere.
Yeah.
And I remember this guy, I think his name was Ed. He's like, oh, you really want it? I bought it for like $8, but like it was like the greatest bargain I ever had in my life. It was, because it was like one of those things that you just couldn't find in the record stores. Yeah.
There's not much footage of them either. I would love to see those, like a concert live. Like I know that they filmed Phil Maurice. They used to film it a lot, and there are ones you can go on and find things. There's one really great one of what's his name? I'm gonna think of his name now. How do you like that? We have Dead Air. Van Morrison.
Oh, okay.
There's a great Van Morrison one, like 1970. It's amazing, actually, from now. But they have to have a film of them, I would say. And there's a film of them actually on the, here we go again, I'm starting to forget things now. On what's his name's? Johnny Cash's show.
Yes.
There's a show, them playing like that. It's pretty wild.
I remember that.
Yeah.
All right. Richard Solomon, Kerry Kearney. What is your website, by the way?
It's kerrykearney.com, official.com, kerrykearneyofficial.com.
All right. So we'll be right back. We got a little bit more radio to go. Don't go anywhere.
This is Russell Hitman Alexander from the Hitman Blues Band, and you are listening to Richard Solomon on WCWP 88.1 FM.
Someone's messing around. There's been fishing in my pond. Someone's messing around. They've been fishing in my pond. I'll make them go away. I'll wave my magic wand. Yeah, buzz, buzz, yeah. Honey, buzz me like a bee. Yeah, buzz, buzz, yeah. Honey, buzz me like a bee. Your sting has got me ballin'. You make honey just for me.
Richard Solomon, Kerry Kearney. So that was track number 2. What was the name of
That's Long Tall Mama.
Okay. So when you finished producing that album and you sat down and you listened to the whole thing straight through, what did you think? What was your first impression of hearing all of this great collection of music?
You know, it's really difficult because you're so close to it. I need like a virgin ears to come in and listen to what's going on. I love that when I bring somebody, like even off the street, I'll take some, out in the middle of the studio, I'll walk out and I'll say, listen, hey, do me a favor, could you come in a second? Somebody in. And I let them listen to it. And a lot of times I feel like they kind of like, they're maybe being nice about it, so I got to be careful like how I'm taking it at the same time. But I think that, if you can separate yourself from it, it's good. If I don't listen to it for a long time, it's even better. And I haven't heard this, and I haven't probably played it in I don't know how long. So I do play the songs when we're playing live. So, but hearing the actual recording of it, I'll listen to it. If it doesn't bother me, then it's good. Okay. If it bothers me, that's terrible. I'll say, oh man, I should have changed that, whatever. You know what I mean? But otherwise, everything's fine.
Has your music evolved?
Yes.
And has it evolved because you've been critical about it, or you decided that you wanted to just go in a new direction?
You know what it is? I stopped being picky about it. That's the hard thing. When you go record something, go do something, and you have this idea of like being a perfectionist, which I used to do that all the time. But a lot of music is not perfect. A lot of blues stuff, it can be a little out of tune at times, so this or that when they're playing. And there's something about the mood of it. I had a friend of mine who was a classical guitar player, and I played him a blues thing one time. Not that I played, but I think it was maybe some Muddy Waters. And he was like so appalled by it because he was like, oh my God, this guy's terrible, blah, blah, blah. But he's not seeing the mood of it. There's a certain mood in the music. That's what I was saying before about learning from the people that Clapton listened to and this and that, and the Stones listened to. When you listen to that stuff, you're getting the education they're getting, understand what it is. And a lot of music that you listen to, it's really not polished. It's what it is. And I tried going through this one, especially, by not having it polished, by just letting it rip like that. And, you know, we rehearsed it before, and I played a lot of stuff live prior to that. So we went in, it wasn't like just going in blind with it, you know what I mean? So that helps when you know, paying for a studio, whatever it is. We had somebody take care of it, actually, so it was a little different. But I mean, hourly, it's like, you know, when you're in there, you got to work. It's not like sitting at home making a record, you know, in your bedroom. It's like every second it goes down, all of a sudden, boom, there's, you know, it's on the clock. So you got to do it like that. So, but I find that doing something, I find also if I do one take of something, it's fresh. And I feel like, and I like it when I listen back to it, that's fine. Get rid of it. Leave it on there. If I started doing like a bunch of takes, I'd be there for like 3 days just trying to get the right guitar sound. And it'll sound like just like the first time I did it. You know what I mean? There's a story about Glenn Fry and with the line, City Girls, just seemed to find that early from the Eagles. And Lying Eyes. It took him 3 months to get that one line.
Wow.
3 months.
Did you ever read the biographies of any of the blues musicians?
Oh, yeah.
That you really cherished as being influences to you?
You know, they all have a similar story. They're all like in the same kind of boat. It's always like, you know, about the poverty, about this and that, about where they came from, where they're playing, which is amazing. They play like in these grocery stores back then. They move everything out of the way, all the aisles out of the way, and that was their juke joint. Like there was no real bar for them back then. You know, a lot of them bigger cities had stuff like that. But when you're rural with some of the stuff, like when you had Sun House and you had like Robert Johnson, I mean, they would just move stuff out of the way, and that was your juke joint. You know what I mean? So there was a guy. His name is Peter Jaralnik. I think his name is. Jaralnik, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he wrote a book about Robert Johnson, and it was just amazing because he was when he was in college, actually, this is back in like 1961 or something like that, he heard, for the first time ever, he heard Robert Johnson play Hellhound on My Trail, and it's a song that's really, and if you look back at the history of it, Robert Johnson did 2 recordings, 2 places he recorded. One was in Texas, and one I think might have been New York. I'm not sure exactly, but he did like maybe about 10 songs in one place and like 15 songs somewhere else, you know what I mean? And a couple of them, there's 2 takes of a couple of songs they have. On some of the later albums, they have that. But the one song called Hellhound on My Trail, it's only 1 take of it. And the way he described it was like he could see Robert Johnson playing this song, and all of a sudden, he evaporates into a puff of like purple smoke and leaves the earth. Like the way he said it was amazing. Because that song is it's so eerie and it's so whatever. And the whole folklore is that he sold his soul to the devil. And Hellhound on My Trail is a part of that whole thing. Me and the Devil Blues, it's all in there. You know what I mean? And even Crossroads. Suppose you go to the Crossroads and you go there at midnight, and you hand your guitar to this guy named Legba, and he tunes it for you and he gives it back to you. And in exchange, he takes your soul. That's what it was. And there's another guy too. It was another Johnson too. Besides Robert Johnson, had the same moniker of that whole thing. Although Robert Johnson takes on the fame of it. You know what I mean? And the funny thing, he was 27 when he died.
He was young, yeah.
He was 27, but so was so was Brian Jones. So was Jimi Hendrix.
I think Jim Morrison
was, and so
Janis Joplin. Yeah.
A lot of people were. Even Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
I mean, and these people, like, they're really, I mean, Kurt Cobain was like the father of that music, you know what I mean?
Grunge, yeah.
And a lot of these people are so big in their fields of what they did, of their music they were doing, you know what I mean? That he basically is the father of rock and roll, if you ask me. And that happened to him. So for him to become famous, I mean, he's it's amazing. One thing about Robert Johnson also, if you're a fisherman, it's kind of a weird analogy, but I call him the Stripe S of blues. When if you're a fisherman and you get a book about fishing, you go through it. There's bluefish, there's a paragraph. There's a porgy, there's a paragraph. Stripe S, there's 3 pages and no answers because they're so mysterious.
Huh.
Robert Johnson, you get a book about the blues. Muddy Waters is a page. You know, B.B. King, there's a big thing about him. There's 10 pages of Robert Johnson and no answer. It's amazing.
Can you be a blues musician without having grown up with hardship?
That's a very good question. I think that I think there's different ways of taking it. You can take it as a musician and listen to the music. And then there are people that have, a good example actually is Van Morrison, okay? His first album, it was Astral Weeks. And I think he was 20 years old. And on the album, he had a big fight with the band. And they ended up putting instruments on the next day. And they recorded like 4 hours, you know what I mean? The whole thing is amazing. And he's, being 20 years old, he sounds like an old blues guy. what he must have lived. He was from
Canada.
Belfast and all that stuff. He was and from Ireland, and he just, you know what I mean. The whole thing is, you could see that in his music, you could feel that in his music, but then there are people like Eric Clapton who he wears a $3,000 Armani suit, and he got a Martin guitar that I wouldn't ever be able to afford if I even sold a house. You know what I mean? And he's playing blues, so it depends on the way you look at it. You know what I mean? I think growing up the way I grew up in let's say middle class, maybe a lower middle class Irish family and German family, whatever, back in, Catholic, whatever, in school with all my friends and blah, blah, blah. We didn't really have much, you know what I mean? I don't know if that does it, where I'm sitting there trying to think to myself, am I having hardship? It's not really hardship for what these people probably had, you know what I mean?
Where do you reach inside you to get that blues feeling? Where does that come from? What do you draw upon?
I'll tell you what, I'll show you.
Okay.
But is our last segment right now?
Yeah. Well, but the answer is this. We could always do more tape. This thing's called bonus features.
There's ways of doing things where I'll show you really quick.
All right, cool. See, this is the magic of both radio and television. So here we go. And if you notice, there's no auto-tune.
Pretty much in tune. This is what I'll do is I'll just do like an improvisation.
Yeah, bring the mic just really close because I want to really get good sound of this. Okay.
All right. Actually, I can do it. I can probably do this. I can probably go like this. Yeah.
Okay.
What I'll do is that's just a improv thing. You know what I mean? And where I'm digging into or where I'm looking for, I really don't even know. But I can just feel the notes, like feel what's going on. I could go like this, like I can go like, or go like this. It's a voice coming out like that. I can either do it mechanically or not mechanically.
So when you write music, tell me about your writing process. Is it something that percolates in your head and then you write it down, or is it something that you just keep playing and you record, or do you run around with like an iPad or a phone or blank paper?
That's a great question, actually. Everybody's, I'm not a prolific songwriter. I'm not like that. I'm not like a Bob Dylan type guy who probably wakes up and he writes songs. You know what I mean? He probably did it one time, obviously, and remembers 10 stanzas of a song, verses. You know what I mean? But what I'll do is I'll be riding along in my car and I'll just be humming something, and I'll have music first because it's hard to put words to music. I don't know how Elton John did it. I'm sure maybe because I'm Bernie Taupin, he must have gave him maybe a melody and then Bernie maybe kind of put the words in. I'm not sure, or he gave it to him and he did it because when you have a meter of music, Paul McCartney, yesterday, the working title was Scrambled Eggs. Scrambled eggs, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's true, but scrambled eggs is the same syllables as yesterday. So when you have that, that's much easier to, it's easier to do it like that. You can sing anything to anything. When you make a parody of a song, you're singing the same syllables into a song. But if you have words already, it's hard to put it into that thing. But I'll have something like, shaking like jelly. Like I was sitting around going, she's shaking like jelly. I started singing it, you know what I mean? And a lot of it's like tongue in cheek. A lot of blues music has this thing where it's like a double entendre at times. It can be funny. You know what I mean? Somebody's thinking, a lot of the women will like that with stuff. Pet My Poodle. They had always like crazy tunes like that. And, but let the good times roll. Let the good times roll. I mean, I've made up a million blues songs just by doing it like that. You know what I mean? But I didn't make that one up. That's B.B. King does that actually. But that's what I mean. Like something like that. It's like it's as easy as like a couple of words you're singing, and that's how it is. There's no real heavy formula to it. I don't think, not in my head anyway.
Do you walk around with a pad or a recorder just because you want to make sure you get it?
I've done that before. I've called friends and sang it into their phone and said, "Don't erase that like that." I used to have one of those little small tape, the mini tapes. I had that. And what I would do is I'd do it for like about a year. I'd hum something in it, I'd put it away. I wouldn't even look at it, but I know I had it down. So and I'd make an album at the end of the year. I'd take out maybe like 10 or 11 songs or melodies and go like that and just have it like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this has been going really fast. We only have a couple of minutes left, but what would you like to talk to all the people out there who don't know your music? What do they need to know about you and your music and your heart and your soul when it comes to what you do?
You know what it is? What I like doing is I like when people dance, number one. And people have it's got a bad stamp on it, blues music, for some reason. I think jazz does that too in a lot of ways. And it's like the least selling music is jazz, obviously. Maybe classical music these days. But blues, what I try to do is I make it so it's dancey. So in a lot of ways, like say you're a husband and wife, the husband says, "Let's go out and see Kerry play tonight." Well, what does he do? Blah, blah, blah. He plays guitar. Oh, I don't want to see that kind of junk. But if she understands that we play something you could dance to and she can get up and dance, then both of them will have a great time together. And that's what I feel. I try to give that thing where I am playing for myself. I do enjoy what I do. But then again, I have to make them enjoy what I'm doing at the same time. And if you can marry those two together, then it's great. And I try to do that.
Would you say it's accessible blues?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's like that, yeah. It's something you can hear. It's familiar. That's one thing. It can be original because, I think, to get an original style is one thing. When you hear Jerry Garcia, you know it's him in 2 seconds. When you hear so-and-so in 2 seconds. But it's like, to get yourself an identifiable sound. I think on Slide, I kind of have that kind of thing going, which is really, really, to me, it's a blessing. And so in that sense, it's like that. It's like anything else. Either you can love it or you can hate it, but I try to get in the middle so that everybody can kind of come to a conclusion that maybe they'll all like it, hopefully.
All right, in the last minute we have left, you're working on a Christmas project?
With Michael Falzerano, yes.
Okay. And you'll be playing at my father's place?
Yes, on the 28th of December, Saturday. And we're going to be, hopefully we'll have it by then. But even if we don't even have the album, we'll have songs from the album. That'll be great. Christmas songs.
So if you're listening to this in the future and you missed it, at least there'll be an archive of this.
Oh, cool.
And if not, buy your tickets now. And go to kerrykearneyofficial.com.
Official.com is
all right.
Yeah.
And how do you spell all that?
Oh, it's KerryKearney official.com.
All right.
There you go.
So thank you so much for spending. This was a great interview. It was a lot of fun. I loved seeing you and hearing you.
Thank
and
you too.
I really thank you for the honor of you being in the studio today. And I love that little acoustic thing.
Cool.
All right, Richard Solomon, we will be back next week. Be safe and have a nice time.